NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now Gyro. That's right, we've rebranded, and Gyro is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but Gyro also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever, so if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, Gyro's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck yeah attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to gyro.com for more info and get amongst you legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul Gyro Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that Gyro created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. Gyro is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but Gyro the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. Gyro is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. Gyro is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. Gyro captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight. Hey gang, so I got a new book out. It's called The Upside of Fear, and it's exactly what you think it's about. It's about the good side of, well, getting scared. In it, we talk not only about the science and biology behind fear, but the psychology as well. And it's not just coming from me, it's coming from some of the best in the sport. Omar Alhigelan, Jeff Provenzano, Maxine Tate, and so many more have contributed their sometimes terrifying stories to the book to help you overcome your fear. So head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com. You're going to find the link to the book there, as well as the other books. It's available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook right now.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go! Back in the can for another edition of the Lunatic Fringe podcast, and thanks to Cola, who I've been leaning on heavily, I've got another fantastic guest on the other line. Please tell me, who the fuck are you, and what do you do?
Sven Jseppi, and I throw myself out of airplanes for a living.
That's what I've been told. That's what I've been told. Pre-podcast, we discovered that I think our paths have crossed, although I don't think we've actually ever met because you were out doing the World Air Games in Dubai in 2014.
Yes, yep. That's definitely sort of the way I've traveled the world is by canopy piloting. Definitely has brought me everywhere. That's kind of the beauty of it, I guess.
Is that not the strangest thing in the world looking back on, is that you got to travel the world because you decided you wanted to fly a parachute fast?
Yeah, for sure. And especially considering that it's not even a professional sport, it's all out of pocket, like we're just doing this for a hobby, for fun, I guess, and,
oh yeah.
And I'm sure we all have our own little goal in the back of our mind as to why we're doing it, and I just enjoy doing it. I just love jumping.
I mean, that's got to be the reason behind it, though, right? Because I mean, I've talked to the world's best canopy pilots, and kind of bluntly asked him, what the fuck is in it for you? Because it's not fucking money and fame.
No, no. I won the world championship last time around, so super stoked. That was one of my goals. I achieved it. Man, did the people ever start, like knocking down my door to come and try to pay me millions and millions of dollars? Oh, I had to like that, just like fight them off,
I have jokingly said that athletes should be paid in accordance with the amount of risk that they take, because then we'd be fucking rich as hell, and football players would do okay.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It would be nice. So, as is how the podcast always goes, I want to jump you back to your beginnings, not necessarily just in skydiving, but into anything so-called extreme.
Well, I mean, my life has definitely always been in a sense extreme because I was born in Switzerland, so I'm Swiss Canadian. I spent first 10 years of my life in Switzerland, then moved to Canada, spent most of my life in Canada, and now I'm slowly catching up with my American residency here to my Canadian one. But obviously in Switzerland I skied before I walked, so that was big in my life, was skiing. So I did that a lot as a kid growing up. And then when we moved to Canada, that slowly shifted to hockey because skiing wasn't as big there, but it was kind of put on the back burner because hockey became sort of the new thing. But in the back of my mind, every time I go skiing and I see these videos of guys jumping off mountains with their skis, I was like, man, I want to do that one day, And when the opportunity came up to go do a skydive, which was actually my dad who paid for my very first one, I was, yep, let's do it. Let's go for it. And as soon as it was a tandem skydive, as soon as the parachute opened up, I kind of like looked back at my instructor. I'm like, you can do this for a living? And he goes, yeah, you just need 499 more jumps and you're an instructor. I'm like, sign me up. And that's kind of like how that happened.
It's kind of awesome though, right? And I was actually going to ask about your name because Sven Jseppi sounds like a mixed bag.
Yep, absolutely. My family my grandfather was sort of from the Italian part of Switzerland. So my great grandfather was actually Italian, and it's sort of like trickled down. And my dad was sort of the last to speak Italian, and that's not really a language they taught me. It was more obviously Swiss German and German. And then we moved to Canada, and then suddenly it became, oh, by the way, you got to learn English, And then, oh, maybe do you want to learn how to speak French? There's Quebec here. I'm like, no, thanks.
I mean, I'll tell you what, part of me sympathizes, but the other part of me is so jealous being born and raised American, and I'm Italian American. My last name's Ricci. But same as you, I was not taught the Italian language. And as an American, I was barely taught English. So yeah. I never got to learn those other languages. So to be able to start out with Swiss German and then transfer obviously into English, which you clearly speak fluently, I'm always so jealous of multilingual people.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, my parents tried to force me when we moved to Canada. They tried to force me into an immersion school where I would speak half the day French and half the day English. But I fought to the death, saying I don't even know English, and you guys want me to learn two languages, And I still picked up French. I mean, there's French everywhere in the area that we lived in, But looking back at it, I really wish like Italian was a language that I do enjoy that language, and I wish I would have got that from my grandfather or from my dad.
Sure. I mean, it's an absolutely stunning language. It really is.
Yeah.
And the older I get, the more I realize that languages they're incredibly difficult as you get older.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what they call a person who speaks three languages, right?
No.
Trilingual.
Okay.
And yeah. And the person who speaks two languages is bilingual, right?
Yeah.
A person that speaks only one language, American.
Fuck you. And it's completely true. It's funny because obviously, especially in skydiving, because it's so multinational and you meet people from literally all around the world. And especially having lived in Dubai for as long as I did, everybody speaks another language. And as an American, Americans make fun of people with heavy accents in the English language. And I remember a long time ago in the sport, someone someone pointing out, if that guy speaks with a heavy accent speaking English, it still means he speaks more fucking languages than you. So keep your mouth shut.
That is, yeah,
Right.
true.
You know, and
Very
I've
true.
carried that forward my entire life. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. If you speak English poorly, you still speak more languages than I speak.
Yeah, yeah. I always get my wife. We I don't know if you've ever heard of the game Bananagrams.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like a Scrabble type game, but you do it really quickly. And I play it with my wife and my family all the time. And I win a lot of the times. And I think it's because I'm really good at the really short words, you know. And then when I win, I'm like, you do realize English is my second language, right?
Yeah. I not to get too far afield, but living here in Finland, it's kind of funny because they speak Finnish and then Swedish is the other national language here.
Okay.
And my wife is a Swedish speaking Finn and all of her friends speak Swedish. And they play a game that is kind of like it's just a general knowledge game called Besserwisser. And I don't speak Finnish, which is what that language is written in, and I've won the game 3 times.
Oh wow, nice.
Because they have to translate it for me, and I'm like, you guys should really be ashamed because I don't even speak this fucking language. So, but anyway, enough of that stuff. So you made your first skydive. Your dad paid for it. That means you were on the young side.
I was 22 when I did, 21, 22. And we had a family business at the time, which was a towing company. And my dad and I used to take turns being on call on the weekends. And it was my weekend to be on call. And my dad was off and he went to the airport and did a tandem skydive. And then he called me. He said, "Hey, I just did a jump. It's the most amazing thing. You need to come out here and do this." I'm like, I don't really have money for it. Plus I'm on call. And he's like, "Well, I'll watch the tow truck and I'll pay for the jump. Get on out here." And boy, did he regret that because, like 2 years later, I turned skydiving into my profession, my passion, and basically gave up the fact that my dad was trying to have me take over the company, be his retirement.
I was just going to ask, was there a plan before skydiving? Clearly it was the family business.
Yeah, for sure. But I'd much rather jump out of an airplane than tow people out of ditches in the winter when it's freezing cold and snowstorm. And no thanks.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, Canada certainly is the frozen north, man. I mean, that's a tough life. Although jumping in the cold can suck too.
Yeah, it can. If you're not prepared and geared up properly, for sure. Yeah.
Now, other than the fact that you weren't taking over the family business, what did the whole family think of the fact that you were now actively pursuing a career jumping out of planes?
Super supportive. My parents were actually, I remember it so vividly that I was just having a discussion with somebody about it the other day. Like we were literally sitting down for lunch in between like some calls and stuff. And I found out that this guy was hiring and I put my name in and I had an interview and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden the phone rings at lunchtime and it was him. And the drop zone owner basically said, "Sven, are you ready to change your life? I want to offer you this job as a full-time skydiver." And I'm thinking my parents are sitting right beside me. They're going, "Oh, I wonder if that's the call." And here I am like, yes, I'm willing to take that, yes, I want to try it, hang up. And I looked at my parents. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do the skydiving thing this summer. And they're like, all right, sounds good.
That's cool that they were supportive, though. I mean, I wouldn't say not a lot of parents would be, but some parents certainly wouldn't be.
Well, I kind of weaseled my way into it in the sense where I said, well, listen, if I take the summer off and go skydiving, you guys watch the business, you can be on call and do all that stuff. And then in the winter, when I'm not skydiving, I'll come back and I'll watch the business and you guys can take some trips in the winter. And they're like, ooh, that's a great idea. And that's kind of how it blossomed into me doing the skydiving thing for the summer for 2-3 seasons. And then eventually, going full time year round type of thing. Yeah.
I like that you're sitting around waiting for the call, kind of like you're a player looking to get called up by the Yankees, which is how you're thinking of it. And your parents are thinking, "Oh fuck, is he going to get the call?"
Yeah.
So
well, that interview, the job interview that I had for that job, it was hilarious to me because you'd think you'd go for a job interview and the guy would interview you and ask you a bunch of questions. Well, the interview went like an hour long because it was me asking him a million questions going, I can do this for a living. I can make enough money. You're telling me I don't have to have a real job. It just kept going on like that. And yeah, it was just fantastic joy.
I mean, that's kind of a secret to the dream career, though, right? Is even at the end of it, trying to figure out if you could actually fucking do that as a job.
Yep.
Really,
sure.
I mean, I guess it was the same thing for me when I started skydiving. It was I'm actually making somebody's paying me to jump out of an airplane. This is outside of any imaginations I had.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Now,
It's cool.
how did it start out for you? Was skydiving, did you take to it like a duck to water, or did you have to work for it?
No, I was pretty fast learner. The skydiving center that luckily that it opened up literally in my backyard. It was 5 minutes from my house, and the drop zone just kind of moved into town because it moved out of a big city and was looking for another place. And the small little town I lived in was close to a city, but it didn't have to deal with all the, air traffic and all that sort of stuff. And it was a privately owned airport. So when I walked out there, I basically brought an envelope full of cash. This was the year after I did a tandem, an envelope full of cash. And I said, here's my money for my AFF. I want to get my license. They, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, start with level, category A, do your first one. I'm like, no. I'm doing all of them. Let's go. Let's get it done. I ended up doing 208 jumps my first year.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I was hooked. Everything, sold all my hockey equipment, sold everything else. Skydiving was my thing. And then by the middle of the second season, I was a video guy and, doing videos, outside videos.
How much do you think the background in skiing and hockey aided you in the kind of mental strength you need to jump out of planes?
I just general craziness, I guess, I think is where it comes from.
Sure.
I definitely just always enjoyed, the rush of extreme sports, that sort of stuff. So this just added to it, and I was definitely a quick learner. And I feel like I always took the safe path. Like I wasn't one of these guys that just kind of like, hey, give me the smallest parachute in the world and I'm ready to go type of deal. I did a lot of jumps, but I also did them safely. I always had a plan, So people always thought, oh, you're so crazy. But then when they kind of look at the sort of the back end of the workings as to all the research that went into it and why I'm doing what I'm doing, they always go, oh, he's taking the safe way up, safe approach.
Sure.
And I've kind of carried that on forward to, to my, competitive career now and even my job, do tandems every day and I do them safely and I have a certain routine that I do and I repeat that routine and it's safe, like my coworkers laugh at me because they know what my interview sounds like when I interview somebody. I'm like, yeah, it's part of my routine. It's when something's out of whack, then it's something's not right. And that's when stuff starts to go awry, like you got to have a routine, be safe with it. And yeah.
Absolutely. Now, what was the year that you were starting to get active in skydiving? When was this?
So it's actually my anniversary is coming up. I think I graduated AFF May 24th of 2004, but I started obviously at the beginning of May. So I'm kind of right around sort of that 20-year anniversary when I started skydiving right now.
Isn't it crazy how quick it gets behind you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
the only regret I have looking back at it is I didn't jump enough because my goal was always to do 1,000 jumps a year, and I'm a little short right now. So I need to do a bunch of jumps this year to catch up.
I mean, it sounds to me like you jump your ass off regardless, but I mean, if you did just shy of 300 jumps in your first season out, you pretty much started with a bang.
Yeah, that was the plan, yeah, for sure.
So now what started aiming you towards the desire to compete?
Watching the beer line swoopers, the guy, your mentors, doing a toggle whip, coming in super fast, like, oh my God, I want to do that,
Sure.
like the guys who came in their RW suits didn't look too impressive to me. It's the guys who, with their mohawks and their short shorts and coming in really fast. Those are the guys that impressed me,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the 2004 to 2010 range, I mean, this is the relatively right around the introduction of the velocity. So when shit started getting proper fast, and when, at least by my estimation, the better skydiver I saw in the drop zone, the grungier they looked.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, it was definitely right around that time when I learned, that first year when you're just learning and just absorbing all this information, a lot of it kind of goes over your head. You don't even pay attention to it. But by the sort of the second year, every time the magazine comes out, you're reading all the magazines, all the ads, what's all there, and then you quickly realize like, oh, there's a PD factory team. Okay, so what do these guys do? There's, then you just start seeing these competitions and swooping and cool shots, cool pictures, videos. Like, all right, that's where it's at. Like that was kind of like my angle to it for sure.
Well, and I think too, at least my entire time in the sport, the biggest crowd pleaser at the drop zones was always the canopies coming in hot and crazy. It was never the tandem videos on the big screen were always really cool to see, and obviously the people like that. But as soon as you heard those lines screaming through the sky, everybody's, oh fuck, what's gonna happen?
Yep. Yeah. Everyone always shows up for the crashes, just like NASCAR,
I've used that analogy many, many times. And the funny thing is, though, the longer I'm in the sport and the older that I get, the less I'm likely to go out and watch them land. Because now I remember the ones that I barely dug out of, and I'm like, I can't fucking watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So when, obviously, you started, you said you started shooting videos.
Yes. Yep.
When did you decide you wanted to be an instructor as well?
That was always kind of the goal. The video thing kind of happened somewhat accidentally. I just happened to be at the drop zone every single day, as much as I could. Happened to be on the right load, the right time, and they're like, "And you're wearing a camera." It's like, okay, well, you might as well shoot this video. So that was kind of like a pleasant surprise. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I can jump my own parachute and do my own thing and still get paid. It was that age where a video guy didn't get paid very much, even though he was using his own equipment, where the tandem instructor was getting paid way more and they weren't using their own equipment. So it just didn't make sense, at that time. So early on in my career, I definitely kind of leaned towards doing more videos than tandems. I enjoyed it because I figured I could get more jumps in because I could pack the parachute fast and I could get on another load fast. And that's kind of what my angle was, do as many jumps as I could because I just love jumping. And then obviously once I met that 3-year requirement of being in the sport, I was like, okay, now I'll get my tandem rating. And then that kind of slowly turned into, there's a drop zone that's looking for a full-time skydiver. What? I can go there, do it all the time? That's kind of how that happened. Yeah.
Now, what drop zone was that?
That was Niagara Skydive Center, and they were back then. They were in Dunnville, Ontario, so like near Niagara Falls. Super nice area, kind of like outside of the Toronto GTA, the Greater Toronto area, and it's still kind of like rustic farmland out there, but still really pretty with the lake right there and stuff. So it was a really really cool place to be, and honestly, one of the biggest reasons why I really wanted to go there. Once I found out all the information of what was involved in this job was that it included free jumps. And I was like, I get free jumps?
Nice.
That was like,
and that's another thing that it's very difficult to explain to anybody that's not in the sport that wait a second, that's what you do for a living and you spend all your spare time what you also do for a living. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
It can make it difficult though. I mean, people don't really understand it, but then again, I suppose that's why skydivers end up with so many skydiver friends and not that many non-skydiving friends.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what happens. Like, you quickly do the math. You work at one of these drop zones that they're like, oh, we'll give you a break on fun jumps. Like, okay, well, if I made this much money this weekend and I want to do as many jumps as I can, it's like it's gonna, pretty much burn through all the money I just made. So when this drop zone kind of had that offer, like, hey, you're the full-time guy. You get priority on all the jumps that come in. I pay for all your ratings, any extra ratings that you need. You get free jumps. We have accommodations. And I'm like, whoa, back up. I have free jumps? That's all I heard, right? It's like, free jumps? Okay. All right. Awesome. Cool. And then what I ended up doing is I created what we called Swoop Club at the drop zone, where I've never drank in my life, and I'm sure you've heard they drink around the drop zone fire. I
Maybe
don't know if you've ever heard that. Yeah.
once or twice.
Well, I used to be the guy that, would wake everybody up at 7 a.m. banging on everybody's trailers going, swoop club, everybody up.
It's fucking
So
you.
Yeah. So then by 8 a.m. we'd be wheels up and the customers wouldn't show up till like 9:30, so we had an hour and a half of us blasting out as many jumps as we could do before the day even started, and that kind of sobered up all the instructors, they didn't smell like booze anymore, that sort of stuff. And so I was stoked. Yeah, it was super fun.
Swoop Club became a great thing that we did at Skydive Cross Keys, and they started that in 2004.
That's
And
right.
I was there for 0405, and they used to do Swoop Club, and it was great because I would go out every once in a while and jump it, but it was just as much fun to wake up on a day off, because I think they did it on Tuesdays, I think it was on Tuesdays. So it was a slow jumping day anyway. So staff members that didn't want to work that day would wake up to go to the pond to get drunk watching everybody else swooping. So by 9 o'clock in the morning, half of the drop zone is fucking wasted and the other half are jumping their asses off. So Swoop Club was a lot of fun.
Nice. That's funny.
Yeah, it was proper
That was
stuff.
good.
So now with starting Swoop Club and stuff, when did you start to compete, and when did the goal of becoming world champion come into it?
Well, that I want to say probably that second year working full time, there was a drop zone like pretty close to us, near us, and they had a pond, and they put on some competition. Maybe it was even Canadian nationals, or maybe it was just like a regional meet or something like that, which a couple of us had heard of. Obviously, being in Swoop Club, we're like, oh, we must be swoopers, we have a Swoop Club, So we kind of like went over there and watched these guys rip through a bunch of like pool noodles. They had pool noodles in the grass and they're whipping through these. I'm like, oh my God, these guys are way better than the beer line swoopers I've ever seen, So like started kind of like a lot of my early career was self-taught, like learning the turn, learning what canopy to jump, that sort of stuff was all kind of like self-taught. But at a certain point, I think it was in Florida. We might have went to Florida in like 2008, 2009 in the winter. And it was an FLCPA meet there. And that's where I met Albert. And he's like, yeah, we have a meet. I'm like, hey, is anybody allowed to enter this? Like, yeah, just give me your money. I love money, like just join us, So a couple of us joined. And then the very first competition you ever do, you always do really well. It's because you don't know the rules. There's no pressure, right?
Right.
So both my friend and I, we did really well. We're, oh my God, that was so easy. Like we could be swoopers, and then that's kind of where that blossomed from,
Well, then what a great time to get started in it. I mean, I remember being able to go down in 2004 and 2005 working at Cross Keys. We would jump as tandem instructors the Wildwood Boogie while the PST tour was going on, which was
right.
It was fucking fantastic. I mean, you had all the best of the best were down there. Jason Moletsky and Heath Richardson and all these fucking gods of canopies. And I was lucky in that you saw those guys and went, oh my God, I can do that. And I watched those guys and went, there's no fucking way I can do that. I'm happy to be a tandem instructor. And it was nice because I got to see it on such a grand scale. You're watching these guys wind up these 450s and larger next to the Ferris wheel in Wildwood going, that's just the craziest fucking thing I've ever seen. I mean,
yeah.
And that was kind of when it really kind of all took off. And so it must have been super cool for those to be the beginnings of the things that you were seeing as you're really getting your start in the sport.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think surrounding yourself with that kind of crowd, definitely, you feed off of that, like, Scott Roberts, a really good friend of mine, owns Fluid Wings, makes my parachutes, I met him in those early days. He was one of the first people I met. And the first thing he said to me was, hey, we're renting the 182 up at Skydive Palatka. We're just paying tack time. If you want to hop on, get in the car by, 6 a.m., you can come swoop all day long. I'm like, yes, I'm on board, and that's kind of like how I met that crowd, and just got just immersed myself into it, basically. And at that time, I wasn't doing it with a goal in mind, like, oh my God, I want to be world champion. It was more of I just love doing this, and I want to go fast. I want to go far, that sort of stuff. That's kind of like the mentality of it back then, which slowly, I want to say probably 2000, I guess it would have been 2014 was, like you said, was one of the first times we went to Dubai. Right before that, we had a world championship in Zephyr Hills. That was kind of like one of the first times when I was like, well, I could get serious about this. And then started, hiring Jay Moletsky, Ian Bobo, few of these guys for coaching. They're like, hey,
Sure.
come to the drop zone for this and this day, and you can split the day with these people. It'll be this much. I'm like, no, I want coaching this day, all day, just me. Let's go. Like, I was committed. Like, let's do it the right way. I'm not trying to get a cheap deal. I want to coach. So I was fully committed at that point. And it was
Nice.
money was no object. Let the credit card pay for it. Thinking,
Nice. I want you guys to teach me how to beat you.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I mean, those are the best of the best, right? I mean, these are guys that will go down in the rock and roll history, so to speak, as the pioneers of that entire part of the sport.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, J-Mo was definitely, a mentor of mine for a long time. I mean, we still obviously chat now all the time. And especially when it comes to competition time, I'll get little tidbits from him here and there. And I'm like, yes, master. Yes, master.
It's so great because the first time I met him was probably way back then, but he was very high on the PD team thing. And, so us mere mortals that didn't swoop didn't really come up on his radar all that much. But he has broadened so much through his time in the sport, and of course, Flight One and everything that he's had going on with that. And now on the podcast with Melanie and everything that he's done. He actually stayed with me here in Helsinki last year, and he's coming back in August again. And it's great because, every time you sit down to have a long conversation with JMO, it's going to be therapy time. Like, I'm going to work some shit out now.
Yeah.
And it's fucking great, man. He happened to come out at a rather cold time of the year last year, and so he and I went cold dipping in 3-degree water. And of course, Jason being Jason, I normally stayed in for 2, so he stayed in for fucking 5.
Yeah. Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So what a great person to have as a mentor, especially when it comes to the canopy side of things.
Yeah. He definitely, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I taught him something, but I feel like he would admit that the things he was teaching me as we were going, he started learning from what I was doing, which then was information he carried on to other jumpers. The two, like him and I were really big into the fly site data early on, before kind of like other people were doing that. People were like, oh, ignore that. That doesn't matter. All this sort of stuff. And Jay was like, no, like, this will tell you where you flew your pattern. This will tell you how fast you went, this sort of stuff. And we started really deep diving into this data, getting really nerdy about it, like talking to each other about stuff, and everybody be looking at us like we have 3 heads, and it just made sense to us, and then that slowly turned into what everyone gets taught now.
Sure.
If you want to go swooping and you attend a course that's going on a weekend, you better not show up without a fly site, because they're going to be like, well, what are you doing here? Like, you're not going to learn anything, like this thing will actually tell you stuff,
One awesome thing that can, of course, be said about Jay is he is absolutely open to learning, period.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yep.
he's absolutely there. I was lucky enough to, when I wrote a book recently on fear and different ways to handle it, obviously primarily in skydiving, and I reached out to some of the best in the sport to add essays for the book on in times that they've had to deal with and overcome fear. And Jason gave me an absolutely spectacular one. And I mean, these are the kind of people that as you grow up in the sport, you kind of view as fearless. This guy's got to be fearless. And then he tells you a time when he was fucking scared shitless. And you're like, That's the greatest thing I've ever heard. Because if he was scared and he did it, that means I can fucking do it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So big.
I've got some scary, embarrassing stories about Jay, but we won't get too deep into that.
I'll tell you what, when he comes in August, we'll do another one of these with the three of us, and then you guys can talk back and forth.
Yes, absolutely, for sure.
So, outside of you start skydiving, the family embraces it, you really dive into it, you decide to get into the canopy side of things, and we'll talk a bit more about the competition and making it to world champion. But what kind of a true psychopath decides they want to run a skydiving operation?
Well, again, it comes down to how do I feed my addiction? How can I do what I want to do without having to pay for it, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So I did just like any other Canadian does, spend the winters in Florida, somewhere in the United States, trying to get some free jumps in here and there, and I just happened to be at Lake Wales, where my now wife walked in with her friend. And luckily enough, it was a super windy day that day. And the tandem instructor that was teamed up with her friend was newer. So he was kind of like worried about the winds. So he came up to me and said, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable with these winds. Would you be willing to go take this gentleman for a tandem?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. No problem." So that kind of then opened the door for me having the discussion with this guy who was my now wife. Heather is my wife, her friend. And I got to chat with her, obviously, because the two of them were together, came out together. And that's basically, how I met her. And once we started chatting, she told me where she lived, which was here on the Outer Banks in North Carolina. And I said, "Where are the Outer Banks?" And she goes, "It's where the Wright Brother Memorial is, where the Wright brothers did the first flight." And I went, "Who are the Wright brothers?" So she had a lot of explaining to do since I was from Canada, So then I finally came out here and visited and said, "Is there an airport there?" She's like, "Yeah, we got an airport." So we started looking into it. I'm like, "Well, I'm ready to move here, but I need a job, so let's open a skydiving place. So that way I don't have to drive hours upon hours somewhere else to go do tandems for somebody else." And she was, she had a business degree from back in the day, and she's a successful real estate agent here. So she's like, "Yeah, let's do it." Absolutely. She was on board. That's what we decided to do.
Did you find starting the drop zone, was it a quick start? Were you getting hits right away, or was it something that you really had to work through the community to start drawing people in?
No, so we got really fortunate in the sense that because of our location, it's a very touristy area, so we definitely feed off the tourist market. We had a pretty strict business plan that we put together for the airport here to present what we were going to be offering to people, which a big part of that was, hey, we're going to be a tandem skydiving center, taking people for tandem skydives. Anybody who jumps here is a tandem instructor, a highly experienced instructor. So you don't have to worry about, people landing out in the water or getting blown off into nowhere, that sort of stuff. So that was kind of like our sales pitch to them. We basically got permission from the airport here, and then I went back to Canada and finished another season in Canada, basically to make money to get some gear together. And then while I did that back in Canada, she managed to find us an airplane down here, did surveys on the beach, because we're obviously right on the beach. She did surveys on the beach once a week, "Hey, if there was a skydiving center here, is this something you'd be interested in? Would you do it? If you were, how much would you pay?" That sort of stuff. Then again, she was walking around in a bikini, so of course people are going to say yes, but
it's all marketing, man.
yeah. So we definitely did our homework, and then in 2011, April 1st of 2011 is when we opened the doors, and the phone started ringing, and I think back then it was still the Skyride days, so we had a little bit of Skyride bookings, which we quickly stopped doing because it made more sense to do our own advertising.
The ultimate controversy in tandem skydiving.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
For anybody that doesn't know Skyride, look it up. It had a very contentious history in skydiving.
Yeah.
It was viewed as not the best by a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Well, I mean, like we talked about pre-podcast, honestly, the best business model in skydiving is a tandem factory. That's where the money
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And although obviously a lot of people listening are fun jumpers and active skydivers that kind of frown when they hear the word tandem factory, the fact of the matter is a tandem factory is still exposing the general public to our sport.
Yep.
I mean, it's still giving people the opportunity to experience it and then decide that they want to go on to the wider world of skydiving. That being said, somebody comes out and makes a tandem with you. I'm assuming that you have lots of places you can aim them from where you're at to go learn.
Absolutely, yeah. We have great locations around us. Like Skydive Suffolk is to the north of us. We got Crystal Coast to the south of us. So there's definitely places where people can learn, and we do send them out and to do that, all depending where the person lives. Funny enough, most of our passengers that come here, they're not from this area because they're tourists. So they're
Sure.
usually like from Pennsylvania, northern New York, all over the place, really, from the East Coast. So we usually just direct them. Hey, well, here's a skydiving magazine. Look at the back; it's got a directory in it. Like look for a place that near you. We've definitely had several jumpers that jumped with us. Like, do you know Wes Sandler? He's a wingsuiter.
I know the name, but I don't think I know him.
Yeah, he's a big wingsuiter. He does skydive Chicago all the time, and then in winters, I think he spends in Zephyr Hills. He did his very first skydive with me. Like,
How great is that?
Had no idea that he was going to be a skydiver. He just happened to come out, fell in love with it. He's like, I can learn to do this. I'm like, yeah, go see Skydive Suffolk. And now he's like one of the gurus of teaching people how to wingsuit. Like.
That's the greatest thing about our sport, right? You never know who you're taking on that next tandem. You never have a clue.
Yep.
Now,
Absolutely.
Do you still enjoy doing tandems?
Absolutely. I really enjoy it because I kind of think of it back because I remember my first jump so vividly. I remember oddly enough, I remember the smell of the airplane. I remember sort of, the clouds, the temperature. Like I kind of just remember all this. It just got burned to my memory. But I don't remember is that first feeling. It's the only thing I don't remember because I've done it so many times now that my feeling is not the same anymore, right?
Sure.
But I get to see it again when I take these tandem passengers. Like there's some of them are just so freaked out. Some of them are so excited. And I can always tell, like when the parachute opens up, I can go, that guy was me. Like that's one of those people, like he's one of those guys that's going to get hooked or she's going to get hooked, like you can always tell. And I enjoy it. I like sort of sharing the pleasure that I get out of it with them, and they get to experience either for the first time or, we have repeat jumpers too. And then people who go on and do it, themselves for fun or a profession, So
I've said it a bunch of times, and it's still looking back as the strangest thing to hear myself say. But if I had to choose my favorite way to skydive, it's tandems. As odd as that is, I hated it. I didn't want to get my tandem rating. I was terrified of it. I thought it was just a ridiculous way to go out and try and make money because I started back in the old vectors with the F111 360s and 421s that just ripped your head off every time. But it transitioned into this being able to just feed off of the energy of these people. And same thing, you kind of forget what it felt like on that first skydive, but you can just almost feel these people vibrate with the energy that you're able to give them. And then I also really enjoyed the psychological side of it, which is having to learn what's going to make this next person comfortable enough to let me throw them out of an airplane. And I really enjoyed that puzzle.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always feel like the people that you are least likely to think that they're going to be the ones that are going to want to back out or not want to do it, they're usually the ones that suddenly go, oh, no, I don't want to do it. Like that. Yeah. So you definitely have to kind of massage the sort of way you approach well, you know what? Just put your foot out there, see what the wind feels like. You know?
Yes. Yes. I always used to say, you can say no as many times as you want, but if your feet are still heading towards the door, we're going for a skydive.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So back to competition. Man, you're world champion. How
Yep.
fucking cool is that?
It can't even put words to it. It's pretty pretty sweet.
I
Yeah.
mean, this is an intense field of competitors, but it's also a very tight group of people, right? I mean, everybody knows everybody, and everybody's, if not close friends, they're at least friendly. But you're at the top of the pyramid now. Holy shit!
Absolutely. Yeah, we all know each other. We've all
Oh, you're muted. There we
business
go.
must go on. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Okay, go ahead. You all know each
Uh,
other.
yeah, we all know each other, and we definitely have been around each other, watching each other swoop, go through each other's struggles, that sort of stuff, you know. And to come out at the end of it and being at the top and kind of you don't really realize it while it's happening. You know, when it happened, it happened. I was like, you know, yeah, put a smile on. Yeah, that was cool. But then once you get a few days and you think about it, it's like, man, there's, you know, anywhere from 60 to 90 competitors that go to these competitions, you know, at the world level, that sort of stuff, you know, and every couple of years is this world championship that a person can win. Well, if every single person won it, it would take forever for every person to win it. So then you think back and go, not a lot of people are going to accomplish this, you know,
No.
like it's hard as hell. And you kind of like look back and realize that after the fact, like, man,
I mean,
yeah,
honestly, every time I look at the standings in competitions like that, the top 20 blow me away. I mean, the fact that you can even reach that level, flying the canopy just blows me away. But I've been lucky enough to have amazing guests on. I've had Cornelia on a number of times. I've had Nick on a bunch of times, and all the Abdubari. Oh, I would give my left nut to have Abdubari on the show because he's so fantastic. But you have all these people that are so incredible at this and also so willing to share how they got there, even though the competition is so fucking tight, which is kind of unique in sports, I think.
yeah, I definitely think like we all have that sort of eagerness to obviously do better than everybody else, but we all also have this sort of push to want other people to do better because that means we will have to do better. So we're all improving each other, right? So
Sure.
just because that person started going faster or going further, that means I need to go faster and further. It's like, okay, well, he's using this technique. Well, I'm going to use this, you know, and then you start kind of piling on top of each other, you know. Obviously, with this world of supine harnesses opening up now, I mean, every single competitor is chomping at the bit to get one of these and compete on them. And then they, you know, quickly realize, oh shit, there's another learning curve here, you know, all
Yeah.
this experience I've now got, now I need to relearn everything, you know. So it's a long process, you know, for sure.
Now that you brought that up, and I believe you're speaking of the mutant harness specifically,
Yep.
but with stuff like that going on, you're talking about a pool of competitors that become close friends, if not almost family, and you're competing against each other all the time. And a bit like, you know, the guys on the half pipe skateboarding, you're also cheering your competitors on because you want to see them do amazing things. It's got to be kind of hair raising when there's now a new thing being introduced and that new learning curve. Man, how do you handle the stress, not of your jumps, but of knowing that your friends and fellow competitors are dealing with new shit coming on, and it's fucking dangerous. I mean, this shit's happening at 100 miles an hour or more. It's got to be
Yeah.
crazy stressful.
Yeah. It definitely, it opens up a new sort of way of having to manage what we're doing. Yes, we're all professionals, and yes, we're all, you know, at the top of our game for these people who are starting to make that change into this equipment. And what some of them tend to forget is there should still be a bit of fear of either getting hurt or dying,
Yep.
In there, if you just push hard, constantly and without that fear, that's when you're going to get seriously hurt, or that's where you're going to die. Like you got to have a little bit of pullback and a little bit of sense of this could go bad, right? So you gotta take it in baby steps. Like it's a long-term commitment to finessing the finessed.
Yeah.
You're trying to bring out the last little percent of performance, at the top level already. And you're already at that top level. Now it's frustrating because you're at that level, but now you've got a new piece of equipment that you're not used to yet, but it's performing better and faster. And you want to push harder. It's like, oh no, shit. Now I'm hitting the water. Oh no, now I'm hitting a ballard. Oh no, now, so there's a lot going on.
Yeah, man. I had Maxine Tate share a story with me, and I believe the whole thing took place in Dubai, and her and fellow competitors were waiting to load an airplane when they watched a fellow competitor frap in pretty bad. Luckily, not fatally, but and not in great conditions. The winds were pretty gusty, and the competition was pushing to go forward because they had spectators, and so they wanted to keep things rolling. And all of them in the loading area were very torn because they're like, we shouldn't be jumping in these conditions, but the competition is still going. And our friend just got hurt, but I'm also a competitor and I want to win. And that battle that she described going on and really having to fight with herself to, do I get on the fucking plane or do I take a zero, was hard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, again, we call ourselves professional because we do it professionally in the sense we do it all the time, but we're not professionals in the sense, hey, we have great health care and we get paid to do this.
Yeah, my God.
So at the end of the day, if you go out and get hurt, it's yay, go start a GoFundMe. Like that's not being professional, like
Yeah.
take your chances when the conditions are favorable. Don't go risking your life just because you think you have to.
Sure. Well, and I guess that's where, for me personally, realizing that I was not a competitor especially in canopy stuff, but just in general, that I was always just going to be a good skydiver, but never be a great skydiver, was I got to kind of breathe a sigh of relief. I never have to push to the level that those guys are, because quite frankly, it's fucking scary, man. The level that you guys have to operate at is scary. It just is. But you also have to be able to push all of that fear aside to get that maximum result out. So it's quite a balancing act that you guys have to go through.
Yeah, for sure. What I feel like what happened to me after winning the world championship was the competitions after that. I want to say I maybe cared a little bit less.
Sure.
I maybe had a little bit more fun.
Sure.
Like things changed a little bit where it was always that drive to go further, go faster, be at the top. So now I just kind of like go with whatever comes. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to go there and try. Sure. I mean, I just spent this morning, before we got on the call, I did my 8 training jumps today. I'm still training my ass off.
Sure.
I'm still jumping a lot because guess what? When I show up in South Africa this fall, I'm going to be current. I'm going to be pushing. But this, because I'm pushing, doesn't mean I'm pushing to past my limit. I'm pushing because I'm pushing to the limit that I've trained to.
Sure.
So if you train more than everybody else, your limit's a little different.
Sure.
Right? So you make it easier for yourself.
Sure.
And I feel like not that I don't care. I just look at it differently now. I have a little bit more fun in there now, where before it was a little bit more seriousness.
Which, to be perfectly honest, I'm always relieved to hear the top kind of say that kind of thing, because you kind of either get what you just said, which is you have a little bit more fun with it, and you're very happy with where you're at, or it's oh fuck, man, I got to keep this. I got to be on top again next year. I drive, and although I really appreciate and respect that, it makes me fucking nervous.
Yeah.
So now South Africa, you're going out to, is that at Billy's place in
Billy's
Pretoria?
place, yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
it's going to be the World Championship last week of September. I think they just moved the dates. They were supposed to be the third week, I think, of September. Now it's the last week of September, I believe.
he keeps giving me
So,
shit to come out and visit him. Maybe I'm going to have to do it when the competition's going on, just so I can check it all out. Because
yeah,
especially because Pretoria is at a higher altitude and it's a well-known super fast field.
yeah, you want to watch some swoops and cringe? That's the place to do it.
I've watched just fucking videos of that place puckers me up, man. The speeds that you guys are carrying.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is how you guys stay calm through an entire swoop now. Because my swoops, by the time I realize I should be nervous, I'm slowing down. By the time I realize I'd be nervous on your swoop, I am still fucking speeding up. It's
Yeah. It happened. It happens so fast. By the time I usually open my eyes, things have finished.
wow. But I mean, how dramatic are the differences in speed and distance there? I mean, is it instantly noticeable, or are you just so used to varying speeds that it's just another jump?
Um, it, both to me personally. I've found yes, it can be faster. And you definitely can use that to your advantage if you use it obviously properly.
Yeah,
So managing it properly, I think is definitely gonna make a lot of people go a lot faster and a lot further. So making right, equipment choices, altitude choices for your turn, all that sort of stuff for sure. I think if you come into it with the exact same thing that you've always been doing, yeah, you might run into some issues, right?
sure.
So you definitely have to kind of sort of prepare for it a little bit.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Now, what does the wife, how does she feel about the canopy piloting stuff? Is she behind you 100%, or is she the, eh,
Yeah, she's one of those ones that when I first started, she would do anything for me because obviously, we were in love, and she would come to all the competitions. And by competition number 3, she's like, "Oh my God, this is the same thing over and over and over. Text me next time you have a competition. Tell me how it went."
awesome, awesome.
No, she's very supportive of it. Obviously, she was obviously very proud of when I won, and she actually flew out to come to the award ceremony. She literally did like a whirlwind between her work and having to finagle our dogs and all that sort of stuff. She managed to get on a flight, fly out just for the award ceremony, and basically leave again the next morning. So it was an amazing sort of experience to have her there, and she's always supporting me. Obviously, here at the drop zone, I'm constantly, the day's over with tandems, but here I am still jumping. And she's like, "Oh, okay, well, we're gonna go home." Like, okay, sounds good. Just
Sure,
like,
sure.
be careful, be safe. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Now I gotta hop on a Zoom call and talk to some fucking guy in Finland for an hour.
Oh,
So,
it was all right. We already got our numbers in today.
oh, there you go. Now, are there any competitions that you'll be doing between here and South Africa?
No, I've kind of made it my sort of goal that I kind of prioritize the drop zone, like our business. My wife and I, obviously, I want to prioritize that we succeed here and do well, and I want to be around and make sure that whoever is jumping with me, it's usually just me and one other instructor, and I usually want to make sure things are safe and that sort
Sure,
of stuff. And
sure.
so I usually spend the summer, unless a competition is near here and we just happen to have no bookings, or the weather looks bad or something like that for here, but nice there. I might sometimes try to get out and do a day or something. But I have a full course set up here. I've actually have an accuracy pit in my backyard. I have a speed and a distance course set up here at the airport. So I have all the events I can train and just jump them. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So
Yeah.
now, as we get down towards the end and wind things up, we know that the drop zone is tandems only, but if there's anybody listening that is looking to do that first skydive, how can they find out how to come do a tandem with you? If they're an active jumper that wants to follow up on as you come into competition, and they want to see what the world champion is doing, how can they find you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously on Facebook, I just have my own, obviously Sven Jseppi, but like Instagram and TikTok and all this sort of stuff, it's just the business. It's just Skydive OBX.
Okay.
Find us there, and obviously YouTube as well. We have a Skydive OBX YouTube page, and it's all very driven towards first timers and tandems, obviously.
Sure.
Cola is on me all the time about starting my own social media and sharing my own stuff and all that sort of stuff, but oh well.
She knows what she's doing with that shit, though. I mean, I've known Cola forever. She got me started writing with Blue Skies a very, very long time ago, and she's just a rock star when it comes to that. So that's why she's my go-to when I need somebody good to talk to. I message her and go, "Who the fuck do I need to talk to?" Because I also know she knows everybody and she can browbeat you guys into talking to me. So she can bully you. But Sven, I'll tell you what, man, I'm not going to burn any more of your precious time, but I thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. And I cannot wait, honestly, to see how the next round comes and maybe even meet in South Africa. That would be fucking fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Try to make that trip for sure. It'd be great to see you there.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See ya. Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast brought to you as always by, well, wait, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by Gyro. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to gyro.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. By Pure Spectrum CBD, head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available, hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Damn.